A couple of years ago, I used to be that person who was just hooked to bad habits. The reason why things like scrolling, video games, pornography are so addictive is because they release an absurd amount of pleasure chemical called dopamine. And your brain eventually rewires itself and sort of gets used to receiving this amount of pleasure on a regular basis. This is exactly what happened to me. Even though I knew that these things were kind of bad for me, I just could not stop doing them. And when I was constantly sedating myself with bad habits, then guess what? I began to feel depressed and tired all the time. I would procrastinate any work that needed to be done, and my relationships with my parents, my siblings, and my friends were not all that great because I was always in a shitty mood and I would get triggered at the littlest of things. But that isn't who I am anymore. I have now broken free from all these addictions. I am now someone who wakes up even before the sun. I do around 4 to 5 hours of deep focused work. I lift weights at the gym, train martial arts 6 days a week, and I read a book every month. Once you quit these addictive bad habits, you naturally become more productive. And this is great. But what's even better than feeling productive is the fact that your mental health becomes significantly better. I feel quite happy most days. I feel like I'm now a lot better at regulating my emotions. I can now deal with stress, boredom, criticism, loneliness way better. And when you're in such a good headspace, literally all other areas of your life are uplifted, especially your relationships with family and friends. In this video, I'm going to share with you a few life-changing lessons that allowed me to break free from these bad habits. And if you can implement these protocols in your life, then no addiction stands a chance against you. So let's get right into it. The single biggest mistake that I was making back then was that I was trying to break free from these addictions using raw motivation or willpower. I would get inspired by watching movies or motivational videos, and then I would be like, that's it, I'm going to change my life starting tomorrow. And to be honest with you, this did work, but only for a couple of days. Because the thing is, motivation is a limited resource and it is bound to run out. And if your entire strategy to overcoming bad behavior depends on this limited fuel, then guess what? You are bound to fail sooner or later. Because trust me, I've tried this motivation-based approach thousands of times and I've failed thousands of times. This is why you see those people who are on nofap subreddits constantly relapsing over and over again. This is also why most people who try to lose weight cannot stick to their diets long term. Using motivation to quit bad habits is like swimming against a gushing river. You can go a certain distance, but eventually you're just going to crash and burn out. But what if instead of swimming against that gushing river, you could swim in the same direction along with it? Just think about how easy and effortless it would be to break free from bad habits then. And this is exactly what I did. I switched from a motivation-based approach to a systems-based approach. A systems-based approach is like swimming along with the river rather than swimming against it. And since a systems-based approach is easy to follow, it is not something that is short-term. It is rather something that is long-lasting. A system is simply a predetermined, organized, and effective way of doing something. Let me give you an example that shows just how powerful systems really are. In the domain of fitness, just imagine there are two people and both of them want to get really in shape. First person is the type of guy that relies on motivation and he's usually very mood dependent. He wakes up and says, I will work out if I feel like it. Some days his mood is great, so he works out really hard. But some days, the mood is not all that great and he skips working out altogether. The progress that this type of person makes on his fitness journey is so inconsistent that he quits working out entirely in just 2 weeks. But then there is the second guy who does not rely on his mood, emotion, willpower, but instead he designs systems that allow him to make effortless progress towards his goal. First thing he does is that he sets a specific time at which he would be hitting the gym. His workout is pre-planned. He knows exactly the number of sets and reps that he would be doing. All of this pre-planning allows him to skip the process of decision making and rather make training a no-brainer activity. Secondly, he has this rule in place that each night he's going to take out his gym clothes, his gym shoes, and he's going to keep them somewhere where they're immediately accessible. So this way he does not really face any friction the next day when he actually needs to work out. Lastly, he realized that it's inevitable that some days he's not going to feel like working out. On those days, he planned that instead of skipping the workout entirely, he is just going to do a much shorter and a much easier workout instead, just to maintain the consistency. Now, because of this system that he has created for himself that makes working out easy and effortless, he is able to do this for years. And as a result, his progress compounds. He gets fit regardless of feeling motivated or not. And that is the power of a good system. Over the next few points, I'm going to teach you a system that is going to allow you to break free from bad habits for the long term. So make sure that you take notes. You know that saying, an idle mind is the devil's workshop? This is 100% true when the devil that you're dealing with is instant pleasure-giving activities. If you wake up without a plan for your day, without any kind of structure or any meaningful goal, then guess what? The first thought that your brain is going to give you is, how do I get some quick pleasure? And rightfully so, because if there's nothing around you that excites you, or that is worthy of being done, then why should you exercise discipline? Why should you not indulge in bad behaviors? It makes no sense resisting them. So the first thing that you are required to do is have some form of goals for the next 1 to 3 months. And these goals should be your goals, something that really speaks to you. It could be something like, for the next 2 months, I am going to read 1 hour every single day. I'm going to hit the gym 5 days a week, and I'm going to study 2 hours a day. Notice that all these goals that I listed down are actually action oriented and not outcome oriented, because it is these action oriented goals that are truly in your control. It might not be in your control to win that race 3 months from now, but you can sure as hell show up to every single practice session for the next 3 months. That is for sure in your control. Now that you have your action oriented goals set, you have some form of excitement and meaning in your life. You now know in what direction you need to be moving. But here's the brutal truth. All those ambitions and goals are quite useless if you don't have a specific path to follow each and every single day to actually achieve these goals. And this is why you need a daily routine. I know that you probably heard a lot of people lecturing you about having a routine and blah, blah, blah. You've also probably tried to live your life by a routine, but it didn't really work. I get it. What I want you to do now is to forget every single thing you know about routines and start fresh. Firstly, I want you to have an entirely new perspective of routines. A routine is not a prison sentence. A routine is not the killer of creativity. A routine is not a punishment. A routine is not supposed to be boring. A routine is not your enemy. I want you to think of a routine as your friend who genuinely loves you and wants to see you succeed. It wants to see you hit those goals that you wrote. It wants to protect you from all the short-term pleasure-giving things that are all around you and are going to throw you off track. A routine is not a dictator, but it is rather someone who you can talk to and negotiate with. Keep these things in mind when you are creating a routine. Firstly, note down the activities that lead you to the accomplishment of goals for that particular month or week or year. The next thing you need to do is decide at what time are you going to be doing these core activities. Once you're done noting down the times for your core tasks, you need to then note down the times for other secondary activities that are still important for maintaining your life. Things such as what time are you going to be having lunch, what time are you going to be having dinner, what time are you going to be hitting the bed, and what time have you allocated to just relax and enjoy yourself. And you might think that this is so trivial, right? Just noting down the times of various things. But trust me, this is so powerful. When you have the times written down for things, you are much more likely to get them done. And when an activity does not have a specific time next to it, then it's just lost and replaced by one of the 1,000 other possibilities, including the very bad habits that you're trying to avoid. Now, just because you've designed a routine doesn't really mean you're going to follow it or it's going to turn out the way that you thought it would. I want you to look at your routine and actually visualize yourself living by this routine tomorrow. This step-by-step visualization of acting out your routine, what it will do is it will narrow down the point of failures. It is going to show you what could actually go wrong tomorrow. Maybe the time at which you're planning to go to the gym is actually a bad time because the gym is closed, or it's expected to rain tomorrow at that time. So now what you have to do is address this point of failure in some way. Either you can change the time at which you hit the gym, or perhaps consider working out indoors that day. The more you visualize, the more points of failures you will note. And the more point of failures you address, the more consistent you will get at your routine. If you're interested in information-based content that centers around building systems for discipline and consistency, especially in modern times where instant pleasure is all around you, then do hit that subscribe button. I post 2 to 3 new videos each week. These videos often serve as reminders for a person to get back on track. Nights are a dangerous time, my friend. This is the time when the demons come out and the streets are filled with people that you don't really want to meet in a dark alley. Nights are when your mind is fatigued from the battles of the day and your enemies, meaning your bad habits, have an upper hand over you. This is how my life would look like in the past. I would be fairly disciplined. I would follow my schedule for the day. I would be busy. So I was in some sense well protected from these bad habits. But when the night would hit, I would be in the privacy of my room, no one around me, nothing keeping me busy, and I would would feel a bit more tired and let my guard down. That is when temptations for bad habits would be at their peak. The critical mistake that most people are making is that they extend the duration of their nights and end up putting themselves in impulsive, carefree situations. For example, the person who goes to bed as early as 9 p.m. and then wakes up as early as 5 a.m., he has a much shorter night experience. This in some sense protects him from being in that impulsive behavior zone. However, a person who sleeps as late as 12 or 1 a.m. is at a much greater risk at indulging in bad habits. And to be honest with you, when I first realized this phenomenon, I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit sad. Realizing that I cannot enjoy late night Netflix binges anymore, nor can I go out to some late night social events, because doing these things put me in an impulsive state of mind and I risk doing bad behaviors. But that being said, the reward of going to bed early is so great that it makes up for the other little sacrifices. Just by going to bed early, not only are you shortening your nights and protecting yourself from bad habits, but you're also elongating your day. These days, I naturally wake up at 4:30 a.m. feeling full of energy, excited to work while the world is asleep. You just feel like Batman, like a man on a mission. And not to mention that the quality of work that you do when your mind is fresh and there are no distractions around is significantly better. If you're someone who currently goes to bed pretty late and then wakes up pretty late, don't just try to brute force and fix your sleep schedule today by just going to bed at 9 p.m. and just expecting yourself to fall asleep. That is not going to work. Fixing your sleep schedule and maintaining your sleep schedule is an art. It can be pretty effortless to do if you have a good system in place. I would highly recommend that you watch a few of Andrew Huberman's podcasts on sleep optimization. They go over things like meal timings, getting enough sunlight, dimming lights at night, and fasting, which are all important for optimizing your sleep. There was a show called The Biggest Loser. The show was about getting obese people in and having them lose weight. And most people who came into the show managed to lose a ton of weight. But then there were reports of something strange. As most of the participants of that show, once they returned back home, they ended up gaining most of that weight back. And this is why your environment plays such a critical role. When these people were actually in that show as participants, they were working out, monitoring their diets. They had all these other obese people as their teammates, pushing them, helping them when they were struggling. The entire environment valued hard work, dedication, and most of all, losing weight. But once they back home, basically going back to their environment which actually got them fat, they once again started living in those places where they were used to binge eating food and not working out. Gone was the team support, gone was the value system, and thus it was pretty inevitable that the environment caused people to revert back to their old degenerate ways. And this isn't just limited to obese people. People who go to rehabilitation to quit addictions, they are able to quit that addiction in this protected rehab environment. But as soon as they go back home to their original environments, they are back to being addicted. So what can we do about this? Well, for starters, quit the environments that encourage bad habits. It could very well mean that you stop hanging out with friends who you have known since high school, but now all you do is just hang out on weekends, smoking weed, eating shitty food, talking about pointless shit. And I'm not going to lie, this is going to be very hard. There is going to be a voice in your head saying that, but these are my homies, I have so many good memories with them, yada yada yada. When this happens, I want you to sit down and ask yourself these questions. Are these really my friends? Are these the kind of people who would bring me closer to my goals? Are these the kind of people who will bring me closer to the man that I want to become? Are these the kind of people who are ambitious themselves and are actually heading somewhere in life? Am I just hanging out with these people because of the short-term pleasure I receive from these interactions? Am I friends with these people because, well, I have no other friends? And this is the only low-tier crowd that will accept me. If you already know the answer to these questions and the answer is not good, yet you're still not willing to exit these circles, then guess what? You deserve your addictions. I'm not going to sugarcoat them. You deserve them. You chose them over your goal. You chose these people over the future you. You betrayed yourself. I actually have this challenge for you. Just for the next 1 month, stop going to all these social gatherings just for 1 month and just focus on developing yourself and see the type of man that you actually become. Because I guarantee you, once you see the progress that you have made in just 1 month of committing yourself and applying yourself and doing the hard things, the type of man that you will become will naturally not want to associate with those people. Now you know exactly how to break free from bad habits. But the truth is, quitting them is only half the battle. The next step is building unshakable discipline so you never fall back into these behaviors again. So make sure that you watch this video to learn how to do just that.